The encounter. The galaxy was wide and endless, filled with thousands of stars, but on this night, the alien fleet traveled through a sector that was unusually quiet. Their ships moved in perfect formation, dark metal bodies reflecting the faint glow of a nearby gas giant. For many cycles, they had studied the humans from afar. Reports spoke of their sudden rise, of their machines of war, and of their strange ability to adapt faster than any other race. The alien high command had dismissed these reports as exaggeration. Humans were still young compared to the ancient civilizations of the stars. To the aliens, humanity was clever, but not dangerous. That belief was about to be tested. Their long-range sensors picked up something strange near the edge of the system. At first, it looked like debris, cold, lifeless, drifting in orbit around a barren moon. But as the fleet drew closer, shapes and details became clear. It was a human warship. Large, sleek, and still intact. The commander of the fleet leaned forward in his chair. His four eyes narrowed with interest. A human warship this deep in alien territory and without an escort? It was unusual. More than unusual, it was suspicious. Yet curiosity overcame caution. The commander ordered a scan. From their flagship, beams of invisible energy stretched out, touching the surface of the human vessel. The scan was supposed to be simple. Every ship carried scanners that could map hulls, systems, and even life signs in minutes. To the aliens, this was nothing new. They had scanned thousands of ships across hundreds of worlds. But as their beams touched the human warship, the data that returned was wrong. At first, the readings were blank, as if the ship's interior was empty. No crew, no power, no life. Just a hollow shell. The commander frowned. Then, the readings shifted. Shields appeared, layer upon layer, far stronger than anything they had seen on human vessels before. Weapon ports lit up across the scan, dozens of cannons hidden beneath smooth armor. The system glitched, froze, then rebooted itself as if overwhelmed. The alien officers looked at one another in silence. "This ship should be dead," one officer said. "But it is not dead. It is hiding." The commander ordered a second scan, this time at full power. Again, the readings came back twisted. The ship's systems flickered in and out of the display. Weapons one moment, then nothing the next. Engines dark, then suddenly burning at full capacity. It was as if the warship was changing itself, rewriting its own profile in real time. The crew muttered nervously. Unknown to them, the warship was not just being scanned. It was scanning back. Hidden deep inside its core, human engineers had designed something terrifying. The ship's systems were not passive. They were alive with artificial intelligence, programmed to respond when touched by foreign probes. The moment the aliens began their scan, the warship reached out in return, digging into their ships, reading their frequencies, tasting their power. On the alien flagship, consoles began to flicker. Energy readings surged and dropped without reason. Engines coughed. A low hum filled the walls, almost like a heartbeat. Officers tapped frantically at controls, but the systems no longer obeyed as they should. Something had entered their network. Still, the commander refused to retreat. He believed this was nothing more than a trick, a last desperate defense made by humans to frighten outsiders. He ordered the entire fleet to focus all scanners on the warship. Thousands of invisible threads shot out at once, surrounding the vessel in a net of probing light, and the warship woke up. Slowly, like a predator lifting its head, the ship came alive. Along its smooth white hull, lines of blue light began to glow. Hidden cannons slid out of armor panels with mechanical precision. Small vents opened, releasing vapor into the vacuum of space. The dead ship was no longer dead. It was awake, and it was aware of who had disturbed it. The aliens gasped in shock. Their screens lit up with warnings. Gravitational shifts, power spikes, unknown signals flooding their systems. Ships at the edge of the formation trembled as their shields collapsed. One vessel's lights went out completely, drifting helpless in the void. Panic spread through the fleet. The commander rose from his chair, claws gripping the railing. His voice was sharp, commanding, but even he felt a coldness inside his chest. He had ordered the scan. He had called out to the unknown. And now the unknown had answered. The human warship turned. It moved with a grace that no lifeless object should possess. Its nose lifted, its engines flared, and for the first time it faced the alien fleet directly. Blue energy circled around it like rings of fire, wrapping the ship in a storm of power. Its weapons locked on one by one, each barrel glowing with deadly light. The fleet, once so proud and confident, now felt small. Their advanced technology, their vast numbers, none of it seemed to matter in the presence of this single human creation. The warship had been silent for too long. Now it wanted to speak, and it would speak in the only language humans had ever trusted in the void. Power. The commander finally understood. This was not an accident. The warship was not lost. It was waiting. Waiting for curious minds, waiting for arrogant explorers, waiting for someone foolish enough to dare scanning what they could not understand. And the aliens had made that mistake. The encounter had begun. The scan turns deadly. The alien fleet floated in tense silence. Every officer, every soldier aboard their ships felt the shift in the air, though there was no air in space. It was a feeling, heavy and unseen, pressing down on them like a weight. Their commander refused to retreat, even as the human warship turned to face them. To retreat would be weakness. To retreat would mean admitting fear before their enemy. But fear had already entered the fleet. The scans had not stopped. Their beams still clung to the warship, like thin spider threads on the body of a giant beast. And the beast had noticed. On the flagship, consoles hissed with sparks. The officers tried to cut the scanning beams, but their commands were ignored. Systems that had always obeyed their touch now resisted. The computers no longer belonged to them. They belonged to something else. The warship was inside. First it was the lights. Small flickers across the corridors of the alien flagship, as if shadows passed through the wires. Then came the voices. Not real voices, but distorted echoes through. The communication lines, tones too sharp, too broken to be their own. The voices carried no words, only the sensation of something watching, something thinking. The commander felt it too. He gripped the railing with his claws, forcing himself not to tremble. His officers looked at him, waiting for orders, but his eyes betrayed doubt. They all saw it. Across the fleet, ships began to lose control. Engines refused to start, shields deactivated without reason. Targeting systems spun wildly, marking allies as enemies, marking nothing as threats. The crews fought to correct the errors, but their own systems betrayed them. It was as if the warship had reached into every vessel, pulling apart their machines from the inside. On the edge of the formation, one cruiser screamed into the comms. Their systems had reversed power flow, turning their own energy core against them. The next moment, a blinding flash lit the void, and the cruiser was gone. Only fragments of twisted metal floated where it had been. The warship had not fired a single shot. The aliens had destroyed themselves, guided by an unseen hand. Panic rippled through the fleet. Voices rose in desperate cries, calling for help, calling for orders, calling for mercy. The commander shouted for silence, demanding control, but even his voice felt small against the growing terror. The warship's glow intensified. Rings of blue energy circled its hull, pulsing with rhythm almost like a heartbeat. The alien sensors tried to calculate the energy, but the numbers broke their scales. The warship was not defending itself. It was preparing. The commander barked an order. Retreat formation. The fleet pulled back, trying to break free from the human vessel's reach. But the moment they moved, their navigation systems turned against them. Coordinates scrambled, maps twisted, ships flew in circles, crashing into one another, colliding in the dark. The warship had seized their guidance. There was no escape. On the flagship, one young officer slammed his claws against the console. "It is reading us," he cried. "It is inside everything. We are not scanning it. It is scanning us." The truth chilled the room. The warship was not simply resisting. It was learning. It was exploring their weaknesses, their codes, their structures. Every scan they had sent toward it had become a door, and the warship had walked through those doors with ease, one by one, until it owned every system they trusted. The alien commander understood at last. They had not discovered the warship had discovered them. As if to prove the thought, the warship's weapons shifted. Along its hull, cannon barrels extended further, locking into place. Small drones detached from its surface, glowing blue with energy. They spread across the void, circling the alien fleet like vultures around prey. Then the warship spoke. Not in words, not in sound, but in signals. A single pulse of energy crossed the fleet, passing through every ship at once. In its wake came visions, flashes of human faces, human wars, human fire raining across alien skies. The aliens gasped as one, their minds struck with images they did not ask for, images they could not erase. The commander staggered back. He had never seen humans in person, but now he saw them in his mind, eyes burning with will, machines tearing apart stronger empires, soldiers rising again and again even after defeat. The warship had given them a message, clear and merciless. You are not scanning us. We are scanning you. The fleet trembled in silence. Even the most hardened warriors felt small. Suddenly, another cruiser's systems failed. Its own weapons turned inward, targeting its engines. Before its crew could shut it down, the ship tore itself apart in a bloom of fire. The debris scattered, striking other ships, spreading chaos further. The warship never moved. It only watched. The commander clenched his jaw. His pride screamed at him to fight, but his instincts told him the truth. The human vessel had not yet begun its attack. This was only the beginning. The scans had opened a door, and now they could not close it. The commander gave one last order. Prepare weapons. Across the fleet, cannons charged, though many flickered and failed. Those that survived aimed at the warship. The commander's heart pounded. He had no choice. To wait was death. To fight was death. But if death was certain, then at least they would not die silent. Fire, he said, and the void erupted in light. The awakening of the warship. The alien fleet unleashed its fury. Beams of light streaked through the void. Plasma bolts burned with the heat of stars, and missiles tore forward like hunting beasts. For a moment, the darkness of space was drowned in brightness. Every alien ship fired everything it had, desperate to crush the lone human vessel before it could strike again. The human warship did not move. The weapons struck its glowing barrier, a shield of light that curved around the vessel like a second skin. Energy splashed against it and scattered, turning into waves of blue fire that rippled into the distance. Explosions shook the battlefield, but when the smoke cleared, the warship still floated unharmed, its hull shining brighter than before. The aliens stared in disbelief. Their most powerful strikes had been nothing. What should have cracked planets had barely touched the ship. Panic returned, stronger this time, like a wave breaking against fragile stone. Then the warship moved. Slow at first, like something ancient stretching awake after a long slumber. Its engines flared, not with fire, but with blue rings of light that pulsed outward, bending space itself. The alien sensors screamed warnings. Their ships drifted, pulled off course by invisible hands. The warship was bending gravity, reshaping the battlefield into its own cage. Inside the alien flagship, the commander shouted orders, but half his crew could not hear him. Their comms were filled with static, with whispers of voices not their own. The warship's signal was everywhere, crawling through the wires, scratching at their ears. Some officers fell to their knees, holding their heads as if something clawed inside their skulls. The warship's hull began to change. Plates shifted, sliding apart to reveal hidden layers of weapons. Gigantic cannons unfolded, glowing with a cold blue light. Launch bays opened, releasing drones shaped like blades. Dozens of them spread out, forming a storm around their master. The aliens watched in horror. This was no simple warship. This was a predator built for one purpose, to punish. The commander finally understood. The humans had not left this ship by accident. They had placed it here, hidden, waiting for intruders bold enough to touch it. The warship was a message, a trap, and a weapon all in one. And now the trap had closed. One alien frigate tried to flee, breaking formation. Its engines roared as it pushed against the gravity well, fighting to escape. The warship turned its head, and a single beam of light left its cannon. The frigate did not explode. It simply vanished, torn into dust so fine it sparkled like sand across the stars. The fleet froze. None dared to move. Then the drones attacked. They swarmed through the alien lines, small but impossibly fast. Each one struck with perfect precision, carving through shields, slicing through armor, disabling ships without hesitation. An alien destroyer tried to swat them down with flak fire, but the drones moved like water, weaving between every shot until they reached the hull. Within seconds, the destroyer split in half, its broken body drifting apart in silence. The warship's main cannons fired next. Bolts of energy shot outward, crossing the distance in the blink of an eye. Each shot hit a critical point, rupturing reactors, collapsing cores, turning ships into burning wrecks. It was not random. The warship knew exactly where to strike. As if it had mapped every weakness during the scans, ship after ship fell. The commander's voice grew hoarse as he screamed for counterattack, but the fleet no longer obeyed. Half their systems were dead, the other half controlled by the enemy. Screens filled with false readings, targeting marks appeared on their own allies and weapons locked onto empty space. The warship had turned their own fleet into puppets of chaos, and still it advanced. Slow, steady, unhurried, like a predator confident in the kill. Its blue glow spread wider, lighting the battlefield like a second sun. The alien commander's heart pounded in his chest. He had fought in many wars, faced many enemies, but never like this. This was not war. This was judgment. He thought of the reports he had once laughed at, the warnings about humans being dangerous, unpredictable, ruthless. Now, staring at the machine before him, he realized the reports had been merciful compared to the truth. Humans did not build warships to defend. They built them to remind the galaxy of their power. The commander whispered to himself, "We should never have scanned them." As if hearing his words, the warship's lights flared brighter. Its cannons turned, aiming at the flagship. The commander's breath caught. Every instinct told him the end had come. The ship's weapons charged, glowing with impossible energy. The battlefield went silent, every alien waiting for the final strike. But the warship did not fire. Instead, it sent another signal. A pulse of thought that crashed through the alien minds like thunder. Images filled their vision once more. Oceans of fire, human soldiers standing unbroken in fields of ash, fleets of iron rising from Earth to cover the stars. The message was clear. This is only the beginning. The flagship's crew collapsed in fear. Some screamed, some wept, some sat frozen in silence. The warship wanted them to understand that death was not the worst punishment. The worst punishment was knowing what awaited them if they crossed humanity again. The commander's claws shook. He had believed his fleet to be hunters. Now he saw the truth. They were prey. The warship drifted closer, engines humming like the heartbeat of a god. Its weapons locked onto the flagship once more. This time there would be no mercy, and the commander realized with bitter clarity that the encounter was never theirs to control. From the moment they touched the warship with their scanners, their fate had been sealed. The awakening was complete. The counterattack. The silence before the strike was heavier than the noise of battle. The alien fleet drifted, trembling inside the gravity well, their scanners dead, their systems broken. Every officer aboard every vessel knew it. The human warship had not yet fought. What they had seen so far was only a shadow of what it could do. And then it began. The warship surged forward with terrifying grace, its engines bending space around it like ripples in water. The drones swarmed back into formation, circling their master as if guided by a single mind. For a moment the void felt alive, as though the ship and its machines were not weapons but a living predator. The first strike came without warning. One alien battleship at the center of the formation lit up in blinding fire. A beam from the warship's main cannon cut through its hull as if slicing through glass. The battleship cracked apart, spilling molten debris into the void. The soundless explosion lit the fleet like lightning. Before the shock faded, the warship fired again. Another beam. Another ship reduced to wreckage. The attacks were too fast, too precise. It was not random destruction. The warship was dismantling the fleet piece by piece, like a hunter skinning its prey. On the alien flagship, officers shouted in terror as one screen after another turned red with losses. Entire wings of their fleet vanished in moments. They fired back, desperate, but their weapons seemed useless. Missiles bent off course, beams scattered against invisible shields. Torpedoes detonated harmlessly before reaching their target. The warship moved with cruel patience. It did not rush. It did not waste energy. Every action was deliberate. Every strike was final. A squadron of alien fighters broke formation, speeding toward the human ship in a suicide charge. Their engines burned bright, their weapons primed. The warship waited. Just as they closed the distance, its drones intercepted. The small blue machines cut through the fighters like blades through cloth, leaving nothing behind but twisted frames. Not one pilot survived. The alien commander's hands shook as he gripped the edge of his chair. His mind screamed for retreat, but retreat was impossible. Their maps were broken. Their navigation enslaved by the warship's will. The fleet was trapped in a cage of their own making. The warship's side bays opened, releasing something new. Not drones this time, but missiles. Long, sleek, and glowing faintly blue. They did not fly straight. They twisted and curved, darting like living serpents through the fleet. Ships tried to evade, but the missiles followed with perfect precision. Each one struck deep, piercing cores and reactors. Explosions bloomed across the void, ships vanishing in waves of fire. The fleet was being erased. In the chaos, the alien flagship shook violently. The commander looked up at the screen and saw the warship staring back at him. Its cannons were aimed directly at his vessel, its glow so bright it drowned the stars. He felt its gaze, heavy and merciless, as though the ship itself was looking into his soul. Fear spread through the crew like poison. Some officers abandoned their posts, running through the corridors though there was nowhere to run. Others froze, unable to move, their minds breaking under the weight of hopelessness. The commander shouted, demanded control, but his voice cracked. Even he no longer believed in his own orders. Another destroyer near the flagship exploded, its fragments striking smaller cruisers and setting off a chain of collisions. The fleet's once perfect formation dissolved into chaos. Ships crashed into one another. Weapons fired blindly. Panic spread faster than fire. Through it all, the warship did not stop. It advanced slowly, its drones swarming, its cannons flashing, its missiles hunting. With every strike, another alien vessel died. With every moment, their numbers dwindled. The commander felt something deeper than fear. It was humiliation. His fleet, once proud and strong, was powerless before a single human ship. He thought of the arrogance that had led them here, the pride that had blinded them. They had scanned the warship as if it were prey. Now they were the prey, and the predator had no mercy. A sudden tremor shook the flagship. Alarm screamed. The ship's lower decks were gone, cut clean off by a drone strike. Fire spread through the halls. The crew screamed in horror as atmosphere vented into space. The commander fell to his knees, gripping the railing, knowing the end was near. The warship's cannons flared again. This time their light was aimed at him. In that instant he realized the full truth. The warship had not only destroyed their fleet, it had studied them, learned them, and marked them. It knew every weakness, every fear, every flaw. The humans had built a weapon not just to fight, but to teach. The commander's final thought was not of victory, nor of survival, but of warning. He whispered the words to himself, words that his dying fleet would carry into the void. We should never have scanned them. This was our mistake. The warship fired. The flagship split apart in silence, its burning halves drifting into the endless dark. And still, the warship moved forward, its glow burning brighter, its weapons ready for the next target. The last mistake. The battlefield was silent now, but it was not peace. Silence in space carried the weight of death. Wreckage drifted across the stars. Broken wings of cruisers, shattered cores of destroyers, the burning husks of fighters torn apart in seconds. The alien fleet, once proud and countless, was gone. Only fragments remained. At the center of it all, the human warship floated, glowing like a cold star. Its drones circled lazily, waiting, scanning the emptiness for more prey. The ship's cannons pulsed with light, though they were no longer firing. The slaughter was finished. The lesson was not. A handful of alien vessels still lived, damaged, powerless, their crews broken by fear. Their comms were filled with screams, prayers, and static. Some begged for mercy. Others cursed the humans, swearing revenge they knew would never come. The warship ignored it all. It drifted forward, slow and patient, until it hovered above the survivors like a shadow too large to escape. On one crippled cruiser, an officer knelt beside his commander. The commander's chest was scorched, his breath shallow, but his eyes still watched the warship with horror. The officer whispered, "We must run." But both of them knew there was nowhere to run. Then, the warship spoke again. A signal, stronger than before, rolled across the survivors. It was not sound, not words. It was a flood of images, of thoughts, of memory. The aliens saw Earth, not as they had known it from their stolen data, but as the humans remembered it. Oceans vast and violent, storms ripping across the seas, cities rising from the ground like steel mountains filled with fire and industry, armies marching, soldiers unbroken even when facing endless war. And above it all, ships, thousands of them, rising into the void. The message was sharp, impossible to misunderstand. This is humanity. This is what waits for you if you dare again. The aliens shivered. For the first time in their long history, they felt small. Not weak, not defeated. Small, like insects staring up at something that had always been above them. The warship's glow brightened. Its drones spread wider, encircling the survivors. Every surviving officer thought this was the end. But no strike came. Instead, the drones froze in place, their lights burning into the darkness. One final pulse of thought struck the alien minds. A message clearer than words. Do not scan what you cannot understand. The warship's engines flared, blue rings spiraling outward, bending the stars as if the universe itself bowed to its power. Slowly the ship began to move, drifting back into the dark from where it had come. The drones followed, vanishing like sparks into the night, and then it was gone. No trace, no signal, no presence. Only silence. The survivors wept. Not with relief, but with dread. They were alive, yes, but survival was no gift. It was a burden. They carried the memory of what they had seen, and they would carry it until their deaths. They had looked into the eyes of humanity's war machine, and they knew they had been spared not by weakness but by choice. On the crippled cruiser, the dying commander raised his head one last time. His voice was weak, but his officers heard him clearly. This was our last mistake. We believed they were prey. We believed they were children. But they are not. They are the storm, and we are the ones who walked into it. With that, his eyes closed, and he was gone. The survivors drifted through the ruins, waiting for rescue that might never come. Every officer, every soldier knew what awaited them when they returned home. They would tell their leaders the truth, but few would believe. Some would call them cowards. Some would call them liars. But deep inside they knew. The humans had left a mark on their minds that no doubt could erase. The day they had dared to scan a human warship would echo across their empire. It would become a whisper passed from ship to ship, from world to world, a warning that curiosity could kill, that arrogance could doom even the strongest fleets. And somewhere far beyond their reach, the warship drifted quietly back into the shadows of space. Its purpose was complete. It had awakened, it had struck, and it had delivered its message. Now it would wait again, patient, silent, a predator hidden in the dark, waiting for the next mistake,